Morning, it's Nancy Juetten. I'm the leader of the Raise Your Voice, Make Your Impact Facebook group, and I love to bring experts to this group and to also my YouTube audience that can touch on topics that are hot for all of us. And I think one of the ones that's really hot for a lot of us is how to market with integrity, why you don't need to use sales tricks or psychology to sell, and how to empower your buyers to make the best decisions for themselves. If you have been annoyed by icky, manipulative, or otherwise unsavory marketing strategies that don't seem to work for you and you're looking for a refreshing perspective, today's special guest, Holly Chantal, is going to share the wealth with you today because I think you're going to be really excited to meet her. She's a speaker, a business integrator, and a marketing strategist who has helped thousands of online business owners upgrade their vision and create the inner and outer transformation required to break through their upper limits. She's spoken hundreds of times, both virtually and on stage, and is continually innovating in the online marketing industry. One of the things I loved about her bio was a quote that was shared by one of her hosts, where it says, "It was great to have Holly speak at Stand, Speak, and Profit. Her breakout session was value-packed and people walked away with a whole new understanding and access to branding. I describe Holly as a big brain wrapped in a lot of fun." So let's welcome.
I forgot all about that quote.
Oh, it's so good. So good. When you meet or hear her speak, it's clear she knows her stuff. Her magic, though, is how easy she makes the complex topic of branding. She goes much deeper than the canned teaching points everyone is used to hearing, and she does it without overwhelming her audience. Well, hot dog, hallelujah. So glad.
All right.
I'm so glad you can be here. If you are here live, go ahead and say you're here live. And if you are here by replay, go ahead subsequently and put hashtag replay, because I know some real value is going to drop during this short time we have with Holly. And so how did you get into this work in the first place, and why is marketing with integrity such a big deal?
Yeah, so I got into this work kind of organically, really. I started off in 2009 doing website design and found very quickly that even the business owners that I was working with that were already 6-7 figures didn't really know what to ask for when it came to their website. And so the process would end up being really kind of long and drawn out because foundational decisions about what are their offers and how do they want them presented and what do you want that user experience to look like from start to first becoming aware of you to actually committing to work with you. There was a lot of work involved there. So I started developing exercises for my clients to go through to kind of shorten that time frame and deliver more effective websites. So fast forward 7 years later, me and my business partner parted ways. He retired from he was the artist. He just retired from design, and then I continued with the overall website strategy, the copywriting, the funnel creation, and all of those pieces that I'm still doing now.
And how's it going so far?
Going great. Yeah, so I mean, having that background and doing, I mean, we did hundreds of websites for coaches, consultants, like primarily, a few service professionals here and there, but mainly coaches and consultants. I really learned the industry, and I learned who I do my best work with, and this is where like the integrity piece comes in. I do my best work with those that kind of balk at the traditional marketing strategies and want to do something that feels more in integrity with who they are and what they value. And my clients are really, really smart, and they've been around the block. So, and they have a really like very sensitive BS meter, if you will. So if you try to trick them into something or, you know, just do something that's kind of backhanded or a strategy, they're going to notice and they're going to lose respect for you, or for me, rather. I'm talking about my clients. So I make it a point to treat my prospects with respect throughout the sales process by giving them the information they're asking for and allowing them to make their own decisions without pressure, without creating any artificial scarcity, without trying to trick them into saying yes, those kinds of things. And it works out really well because, one, the most amazing clients come to me because we have a match. And it just starts the relationship off on the right foot when they're like leaning in for authentic reasons and excited to work together, and they also want that kind of sales process for themselves.
I think that second part is something that's really going to resonate with folks who are watching, because um, when you can feel good about reading someone else's marketing and feel like, boy, not only do I feel good about this, but I actually feel called to talk to this person more completely to see if she is truly the answer to my prayer. I mean, isn't that really what we want when we're trying to enroll clients into our services?
Right.
You know?
Yeah, you want to show up at like the right place and the right time with the right message. And that when your marketing is clear and all the information is available, you're right, they feel called to reach out to you because it feels different, and the difference is that it feels really good to them.
You know, when you've been making available this wonderful report, The Buyer's Arc, Consistently Enroll New Clients by Empowering Your Prospects. And I've read it like 3 times since I downloaded it the first time. And every time I read it, there's a new nuance that comes across that really resonates for me. But the other thing that I noticed about this report is that you're modeling exactly what everyone else can do to enroll people into their process, into their approach. And one thing that particularly impressed me is the transparency of it, because you make very clear what the options are to work with you. You reveal the investment required. You make it easy for people to book a call. You go into this level of detail so people have already decided in a way before they even reach. Tell us more about that and why that works so well.
Yeah, so a common complaint that I hear from coaches when they're actively marketing themselves is that they're getting a lot of tire kickers, and that's like just like, I think it's kind of a slur. Because a tire kicker, it's a negative term, and it's like people that aren't worth my time. They're just asking questions. They don't actually intend to work with me, that kind of thing. What it actually is your marketing isn't answering their questions. So if you're attracting a lot of tire kickers, it's because you're actually picking them up before they're ready to make a decision. So they're reaching out to you to get answers to their questions that could have easily been answered on your website, through that sales process, in a webinar. So that's why I put everything up front. And yes, I will still get, and it's more like 1 in 10 versus like 7 out of 10 people that, even though all that's available, they still come and ask, like, first question, so what do you do? We get on the phone. And I know that person's not a match, not because they're not a worthy human being and they're trying to waste my time. It's because my clients are the ones that'll do the research. Like that's just a personality aspect of who my ideal clients are. They are the ones that are going to come to the table knowing their options and have questions about what they've already read. And sometimes having people, asking those questions, having that conversation can still lead to a sale, because they just have a different personality type. So there's no right or wrong, but if you find that you're having a lot of people booking calls and just asking questions, but you know that they're not really committed, check out the Buyer's Arc, because there's probably some questions that aren't being answered in your marketing, and that ebook actually will help you brainstorm the topics that go along with each of the questions they're asking themselves.
So what is a Buyer's Arc in simple terms?
So the Buyer's Arc, movies, books, etc. There's like a story arc. That's like the term. So it's kind of like the protagonist, starts off at a certain point, and then the story builds up and then crescendos and then kind of dissipates. The Buyer's Arc is that's where the arc piece comes in. It's basically the journey that your buyer is going on from being aware that they have a problem that they want to solve to actually making a commitment to work with you or someone else. And there's a whole process that you go through when you're making a decision, and you've probably gone through it if you've bought a house, if you've bought a car, or if you've try to decide what you want on Friday night for dinner. You go through this whole process of just figuring out what your options are, deciding what you value, deciding what you don't want, and then reaching that point where you've almost made a decision. And then, and actually, I don't think that this part is in the PDF yet because I've kind of figured it out after that. But on my webinars, I talk about the funny thing that happens between when they've made a decision, like a tentative decision that they want to work with you, and they've booked a call, to actually making a commitment. That's when all of the self-doubts, that's when all of the, is this the right time? Is there something else that I need to do before now? Is this actually the best next step? How is this going to impact me financially? All of those questions, those come up, like, and those are like all the things that they sometimes experience as questions, but I might not actually be able to formulate to be able to ask you. But most of the time, they're experiencing as anxiety, fear, and actually like physical and emotional sensations that feel overwhelming. And that's why they might be like, I need space. I need to think about this. I'm not ready yet. It has nothing to do with you per se. It's really just they're experiencing these fears and these things that are going to stop them from moving forward. And you can't control that, but you can help them figure out those pieces if you know if you know that those are the questions they're asking, even though they're not verbalizing them. Does that make sense? I feel like I went off down a rabbit hole there.
But it kind of makes me wonder, well, I want to tell a story that's sort of addressing similar to this. I have a little side hustle business called the Very Important Pup Hotel, and I look after people's pups while their parents are on vacation.
That's so awesome.
And
I didn't know that about you. That's so cool.
It brings me a lot of joy, and I get paid to do it, which is a bonus. But one of the things I find amusing about pet sitting is the urgency piece is very, very clear. The mom or dad or the human will not get on the boat, the cruise ship, the plane, the train, the automobile. They will not leave unless they know that their pet is in loving arms. And so nobody says to me, well, I've got to think about it, or I've got to check out. I've got to confer with my husband to make sure this is the right solution, or I'm not sure this is the right time, or, all the normal kinds of objections that come up during a selling process. None of them come up with pet sitting. It's like, are you available? Is there room for my pet? Will you look after my pet? Like, people want me to look after their pet, and there are no objections, right?
So there's no objections to you because they obviously feel the love. They obviously trust you. Like there's a connection there. However, I have had those conversations with pet sitters where I was like, yeah, I need to talk to my husband. I need to think about this, because there wasn't that level of comfort. There was something that just didn't feel like I was completely comfortable leaving my pet. So yeah, you might not be experiencing those, but it's just because you're like the perfect person to be watching the person's dog.
But here was the thing that I thought about, is that what if we were all the right person to look after folks who are looking for a much higher ticket solution to a much more dramatic problem, right?
Right.
And so it's an interesting way to look at it, because so often we get so attached to what it is that we're bringing to market. Well, that everything in a bag of chips is included. You get me, you get all this, you get all that. But that's all about you, the service provider. It's not the person who's trying to make a deliberate decision about whether or not you are their right service provider, and your bundle of chips is the right kind of flavor that they need and the right style of this and that and the other things. So what do you say about people that think about it's all about them without thinking about what do you say about countering objections in your own mind as a service provider before you even put pen to paper or have a consultation? What do you say to people about that?
So, and it's funny that you bring that up, because so like a big part of it is you are the package. You are the one that they're hiring. You're the one that has all the answers. And sometimes we get so invested in our prospect's success and we see their potential. I'm very guilty of this when I'm having a sales conversation and I get like all of these ideas and I can see their name in lights and I can see all the things they're going to do. But there's still something that's holding them back. And you have to realize that it isn't always you. It's their own belief in their ability. And even if they have all the tools, there might be still something holding them back. And they have, so you've only seen just a small glimpse of their life because you've only been talking to them for maybe half an hour, maybe an hour. You don't know everything else that's going on. So a lot of times it has to do with them. So kind of going back to the dog example, the reason why I'm not comfortable leaving my dog with people, not because I don't think they're amazing, it's because my dog is a complete spazoid. And if she gets out, you're never going to catch her because she will not come to anyone but me. So I have to be like really careful about who watches her, who I leave her with, and that kind of thing, because I could be in Mexico and I can't come back, but my dog's like a few miles away. So it's not you, it's me.
Right. So what are some of the bigger mistakes that people make along the buyer's arc?
So I think there's a few mistakes or missteps. One is trying to be mysterious and trying to build up the value before you talk about price, and kind of trying to influence people instead of just being really, really upfront and giving them the information. When you're doing that, you're not really trusting your own product, and you're also not trusting them that they can make their own informed decision. And it's something that we hear a lot in the industry from experts, that you need to build, that they need to see the value before they see the price, because the price might just, they see it and they say, I can't afford it, and they move on. And I guess to combat that, they're saying, build up the promise and the the vision and the dream and what they can do, so that when they have the price, they can already see the return on an investment. And I don't think that's actually how people make decisions. It's more like they might look at the price right away, and it might be, yeah, that's $10,000 and I've got $500 in the bank. It's not happening. It's never going to happen. And if they're making that much of a stretch and they don't feel like they're confident that they're going to get the result because of their own things, we don't need to influence that. But if they see it and they say, okay, that's $10,000. Okay, now let me read the rest of it and see if this works for me. Now they're actually taking that number and they're actually figuring out what the return on investment looks like. So I kind of like to flip things around. So when I do webinars where I'm actually pitching a program, I always give the price first. That way I'm not, because I know what's happening, because I've been on webinars before, where the person's talking about the program and all I want to know is what's the price? What's the price? So that I can start, figuring out, how's this going to work? Does it seem worth it? Are they completely bananas? That's what I want to know. So on my webinars, I'll say, here's the price of the program, here are the payment plans available, now let me tell you about it. So that that's not a distraction for people and they're actually listening to what you have to offer and envisioning themselves doing it, because they know if the price is in the stars or not in that moment.
And is there another advantage to that? Because I'm imagining if it's a high ticket program, someone who's listening is likely going to want to get on the phone with you before they make their commitment to make sure the fit is right. So if you have been transparent, sharing the investment to work with me to accomplish these results is X, and this is what you can expect in terms of A, B, and C. If this is something you want, let's get on the phone. Then you can probably also say, remember the investment is, and so people aren't going to be wondering, well, I didn't realize that was how much it is, I can't afford it. If they get on the phone, isn't it a leap to make that someone is actually considering seriously whether or not this thing is the right fit?
Right. And so I put, because, the people that are watching or listening probably have this as well, I have a variety of packages that are at different price points. So how much is it isn't always an easy question to answer. But on my booking form, for example, I have those ranges. So you can work with me in a group starting at $2,400. To work with me on an intensive basis, so like a 1 month intensive or more, starts at $8,000. So they know what to expect coming into it. And they don't know exactly what that looks like, what we're doing, et cetera. But they come to the call knowing, what they're getting into. And then we can really figure out, okay, what is the best solution for them, and what if we did work together for weeks, what does that look like for you? Because you might need something different than the next person, but that's not there's going to be no like bait and switch or anything like that.
Right. I like the transparency. So any other mistakes that people make in terms of delivering content out there?
Oh, yeah. So, there was two that I had in mind when you first asked the question. But the second one isn't really a mistake, because it's not like you're doing it wrong. It's more of it's something, you just don't realize it. So the level of clarity and how you talk about your method, how you talk about, so that your method being the way you do things. And then I also talk about methodology, which is why you do things the way you do. Those pieces are really, really important in marketing, and most people aren't talking about them. They're talking about what they're doing. So when you look at a coach's website and you look at their packages, it's quantified as 6-month program, 3-month program, 12-month program. Here are the calls that are involved. Those are good for you as a reference to know like what the package is, but the client doesn't necessarily know how many calls they're going to be needed. And if you are quantifying things, they're going to be saying, well, what if I can't get the result in that many calls? Am I going to have to do another session? I don't think I can afford to. So it actually brings up more objections. So what I like to, when I'm working with clients, is outline, okay, how does your method work? How functionally are we getting someone from point A to point B? What does that look like? And why are we making those choices? Like, why are we doing it that way versus what are the alternatives that they may have tried before to solve that problem? And what it does is it really helps you create aha moments in your marketing so that things click for them and they realize, that's the piece I've been missing. This makes sense to me. I can actually see myself doing that. That feels really good. And when it's hard for you to do those things yourself because you're so close to it. You also have a certain amount of industry knowledge and experience that you might be using words, terms that have a significance to you, but someone that hasn't gone through the process yet or doesn't have 10 years of experience backing them up, it's completely going over their head. So we need to, it's helpful to have an outside perspective to kind of capture what you're doing in like normal people terms and teach them the language. It's kind of like indoctrinating them into your way of doing things so that it's understandable on their level.
Okay, so that's a really interesting. I like what you just said there. I'm just thinking here. Getting more people on the calendar that are qualified to talk to us about doing business is something that a lot of us are interested in. And you have a very specific process through which people get a time on your calendar. Can you kind of explain a little bit about how you've created that system and why it works so well? Because I think that what you do, I mean, I will be honest with you, as I was looking through all of your materials and following your Yellow Brick Road, I saw so much genius there that I actually told a group of my clients, I said, I want you to get this report because it's a really good report, but I also want you to watch and notice and model exactly what she's doing and how she's doing it because it's genius.
Well, I appreciate that. That means a lot coming from you.
So can you like walk us
So
through?
You're talking about specifically how they book a call, like what that looks like?
Yeah. People
So
please.
before I explain the actual process, I need to explain why I do it that way, because it'll just make a lot more sense. So my main marketing avenues are I host a webinar almost every month, and then I have 3 or 4 JV partners promote that webinar. So what happens is I get an influx of leads all at once, which is different than the leads that are just coming through my website, coming from podcast interviews, coming from articles, like all of the more passive marketing. Like that's just happening all the time. You know, maybe getting 1 or 2 a week. That's not a lot. When you do a webinar into a strategy session, which is mine, like what I normally do rather than selling directly from a webinar, you might get 20 people all at once. I only work 20 hours a week, so I don't have a lot of time on my calendar, you know, between podcast interviews, clients, etc., to be doing strategy sessions. So what I do is when I have an application to book a consultation, which just gives me information about where they are in their business. There's a few questions there that help me know if we're a personality match. They're kind of sneaky. Just so that I know like what their style is and what kind of program is going to be best for them. And it helps me know if personality-wise we're going to be a match, and also, can I help you? After that, they go to book. So this is where I think might be what you're talking about. They book 2 times on my calendar, and here's why I do that. It's super annoying for them, and I've been on the other side of that. Having to book 2 times and then like hold them until the person approves it is a little annoying. But the reason I do it is because when they're requested and not just booked automatically, they don't take off the times from my calendar. So that whole week is still showing as available, so that everyone who is on the webinar gets a chance to book a time. They don't just disappear. So then what I do is I'm able to go through the applications and prioritize the people that are ready to start right now, seem like they'd be a really good fit for whatever I'm promoting at the moment, and I can also kind of organize my schedule to make sure that meetings aren't back-to-back, that kind of thing. So it doesn't mean that I don't book calls with everyone, but it gives me a little bit of wiggle room to be in a little more control of my schedule. And I can approve the times, and then I can reach back out to other people and be like, can we book next week? Like, what do you have next week available? And kind of go back and forth on that so that I can spread the calls out a little bit. So after they've requested their times, then they go to a page that has a video that explains what my offerings are. So you can find all of my offerings on the website, descriptions, pricing, everything. But I'm really surprised how many people don't actually look at my website. It's like, it's all there. So I have a video that explains these are the different offerings that I have. This one's good if you're at this point and you want to get to this point A, you want to get to this point B, and then pricing, like what the pricing ranges are for each of the programs. And I think on that page there's also some podcast interviews, webinars, so they can basically binge information and see like, you just watched a webinar for me, like you've known me for 45 minutes. Let's like fast track the like, do I like this person kind of thing. So I've got articles, podcast interviews, webinars, and people will literally watch like 2 hours worth of content before we actually get on the phone. And it just kind of fast tracks the trust building, and it helps bring up like the real questions they have about how different things would apply to them, which means we get to have a really juicy conversation when we get on the phone.
And these people come to you after binge watching for a period of time. They like you, trust you, have a feeling that you could be the solution to their problem, and they're ready to have a serious conversation.
Yes, they already know what the commitment is, usually how long, that kind of thing. And the other thing I say on that, which this actually came from my friend John Schumacher, he put on there, please be sure to have a conversation with your spouse or any other stakeholders in your decision before we get on the phone, so they can't use that as an excuse.
That's genius. That is so good. So good. So I really encourage everyone who's watching to download Holly's report, The Buyer's Art, Consistently Enroll New Clients by Empowering Your Prospects, for several reasons. One is because it's a darn good report. Number 2, because there's so much wisdom and genius packed within what she shares with you. And then the process through which she is guiding you to logically take the next step is authentic, transparent, crystal clear, and you know whether or not you want it. And the next logical step after downloading this very juicy report, which I've read 3 times already, which is about 25 pages, the next logical step is join us for the webinar that's coming up on Thursday. So tell us about what's happening on this webinar on Thursday.
Yeah, so on Thursday, so people like to consume information in different ways, and kind of like what you said, the more, like each time you listen or watch, you pick up something different. So the PDF has the same topics as the webinar, so we're talking about the buyer's arc and what that looks like, but the webinar goes a little bit more in depth into how to apply it and what are the steps to really gathering the information you need to complete the buyer's arc. And so it complements the PDF. So I recommend consuming, taking advantage of both.
Yes, of course.
So that's on Thursday, 1 o'clock Eastern. And there's also the opportunity to ask questions at the end, which is also really helpful.
And I will drop the link to both the free report and the webinar in the chat so folks can rush and go get those. And you and I were talking in the green room. I've had a couple little issues with this link, so I've tested it a million times. Everything's correct and wonderful. And if you have been thinking, oh my gosh, I've tried this a few times, this is the ticket. Today's the day. The links are working.
We're just gonna give you like the raw like Entreport link because apparently whenever we hyperlink it to text, it's just like nope.
Yeah, sometimes tech is weird, but don't let we've got that problem solved. And so you're going to do this call on Thursday, and I think people should show up for it. And then the other thing I was going to say, which was just on the tip of my tongue, which it just escaped. Oh my gosh. I know.
Well, maybe it'll come back to you. I just have one thing to say about the link. So if you're still having trouble, email me directly, questions@hollychantal.com, and say in the email, please register me for the buyer's arc or for the PDF, just to give me permission to opt you in, and I'll just opt you in, and you should get an email with it.
Right. And I guess what I want to say about that is, listen, I've been in business for 20 years. I've been doing business online since 2009. Way back in the beginning, anytime there was a link issue, I would just like pull my hair out and get all frustrated and feel so much shame and embarrassment and all this other kind of stuff. And now it is 10 years later, it's like, who knows why this stuff happens? But I decided that it's a blessing because people just want it even more when they're frustrated that they can't get it.
Yes, it's totally a tactic.
But it's not.
I know. I know it's not. It's just funny because yeah, I same way. Things that seemed like such a big deal when we started, because you and I both started back in 2009, are just like, yeah, no, not a big deal now.
And it's just for anybody who's ever thought, oh my gosh, what are they going to think of me if I have an issue? Like, they're going to think you're a human being who's doing the very best they can, who has the very best of intentions, and you're going to keep on doing it because that's what you're here to do, to serve your people. And that's the way I approach it as well.
Exactly.
I really want to say with underline and bold face that Holly Chantal knows her stuff. There's so much subtlety and wisdom in what she's teaching. And if you are someone, I remember what I wanted to ask you, if you're someone who wants to enroll authentically and have people come to your enrollment calls pre-sold to have a juicy conversation, you do yourself a big favor by showing up for her webinar to see what she's got brewing. You dropped something in the chat a little while ago, and you said, I only work 20 hours a week, so I have to manage my life and time. I have so many people in my world that work far more than 20 hours a week that have not got the results they want to show for it. Can you just tell us about personally, you've set a boundary, you work 20 hours a week. That's amazing. How's that working?
So,
and why do you, how do you?
So it took a long time to comfortably work 20 hours a week. I've worked, between 20 and 30 hours since my first son was born 8 years ago, actually 8.5 years now. So the problem that I kept running into is I kept biting off more than I could chew and wasn't getting results I want. Felt like I had to continue to do more and more and more, but I didn't have time, so I felt completely constrained, and it was just a hot mess. Since then, I've become more wise and focused, and I've realized that I have to say no to a lot of things. It's no, not never, but just not right now. So I have like a whole idea book, and what I do is I I get very, very focused on building one thing at a time, which feels like for someone that's an overachiever, like type A, like can be torture, but actually becomes really comfortable with time. So what I've done is I've built one solid system at a time. So I have my lead generation system, I have my website, now I have my JV strategy that I started last year. So I build one thing at a time, and once it gets running, it's very, very low maintenance. So that's one of the things I do with my clients like over the course of the year is start building these foundational pieces and these systems, and then once we get them set up and working, we put them on autopilot, or they don't take a lot of time to maintain, and then we work on building the next one. So right now, you'll like this, Nancy, my next one I'm building is I'm going to be launching a podcast in the next couple of months. So now that I have my my webinar funnel and my website and all that working, and it takes me a couple hours a month to maintain, I have my client delivery, again, takes me maybe 3 or 4 hours a month to maintain. Now I can start my webinar, or not, sorry, my podcast, which I'm anticipating is going to take a ton of time up front, so it's a commitment. But once it's going, then it's smooth and you have the processes in place, and it should only take a couple hours a month to maintain.
I love that. I want to ask you one other question. One of the things I say to all my clients and all of my prospects is that none of us builds our success alone. We build it with colleagues, champions, advocates, people who believe in what it is that we do. So you mentioned you have this JV strategy where you have 4 partners that bring people to a webinar every month. Can you just share with us, and since you mentioned it's a somewhat new strategy for you, how did you come to that, and how's it working for you so far, and what would you say to people who are thinking about trying it?
Yeah, so I've been doing webinars for like 13 years now at this point, if I'm doing math correctly. And it's always been like a primary lead strategy for me, but I realized it was just really inconsistent. It was kind of like, oh, I don't have any clients, I need money, I need to do a webinar. So finally, I got smart and realized, okay, well, if I do webinars and they're successful for me, I pre-scheduled them for a year. This was last year, this first year I did this. I scheduled one a month for a year. And then I, over the years, I had built like a handful of relationships that we would do JVs every now and then, but I got really serious about it. I also joined a mastermind that's full of people that serve coaches, and, we serve the same audience but in different ways, and started booking JV partners from there. So last year, I think I did maybe 20 JVs, and maybe 10 of those were new people that I hadn't met before. And then this year, I think I'm going to be doing 40 to 50, because once we created the relationships from last year and we've gotten to know each other, we like each other, then they started introducing me to their network and building more partners, and it could just go over exponentially from there. Next year, I might be doing things completely differently, because I will say that 40 to 50 JVs is a lot to manage for the year, but it's nice to have those options. So I guess the moral of the story is do something consistently and allow it room to grow. It does not have to be huge from the get-go, but if it's working for you, and at that point you're really playing like a numbers game, because that's what I was finding. I would talk to all these webinar experts and be like, why am I not getting the number of clients I want? And they'd literally look at it and go, your conversions are fine, your webinar is awesome, you are selling the program that at the price point, none of those problems, you just need more people going through the funnel. So then it became, okay, well, how do I get more people through the funnel? And that's where the JVs came in. So sometimes what you think is the problem is not actually the problem. And it's really just about showing up consistently and building layers of this, like building layers in the same lane, rather than just trying to do a bunch of different things to find like, what is the thing I'm missing?
Right. I love what you just said there. That was so, so good, because one of the things that I tell people is, one of my clients has this webinar, and 12% of the people that were on her webinar actually decided to become a client. 12%. And I said, that's really good. In your experience, is there a percentage that you have observed fairly consistently?
So the percentages vary based on audience, price point, And like the conversion numbers now are so different than they were even 5-6 years ago. So I think that I was measuring myself based on my numbers like 6-7 years ago, and which is why they seem to really stink now. But the reality is I'm charging probably 4 times as much. My audience is completely different, and it's a little bit harder to reach. Just like my audience actually doesn't watch webinars, which is really funny. But the strategy still works because I build my funnel so that you don't actually have to watch the webinar to get to learn about the program and everything, which is a whole other strategy we can talk about another day. But yeah, so I don't have any like industry standards, but I did hear, this was really interesting to me. I did hear that if you have a high ticket offer, $5,000 or more, and you're getting a 1% conversion from registration, so not attendees, but registration to sale, that's actually that's a really good, solid foundation to start from, which I was floored that that's all you needed.
It's so interesting when people talk about the numbers. Kelly Roach of The Unstoppable Entrepreneur has people go from cold to close to buy or invest wisely into a $30,000 program. And she says that 3% of the people that show up live for her live launch method ultimately become clients during these
Yep.
events that she holds. So getting back to my client who had a 12% conversion rate, it was the same situation. Her content is dialed in, her delivery is dialed in, her offer is rock solid. People get results from it. The one thing that is needed is a much wider audience to benefit from how she helps. And how do you get a much wider audience to benefit from how you help? You podcast guests like crazy.
Exactly. It's such a great strategy.
And you create relationships with people who have a complementary offer that your clients might want to consider when they're complete with you to go to them, or they may have something that would be something that they would go to before you. But you have to think logically, like I always say, if you're going to get married, you're going to need a wedding ring, you're going to need a honeymoon location, you're going to need a wedding venue, you're going to need a cake, you're going to need a photographer, you're going to need all these things. All these service providers are all part of the wedding. Right. So create relationships with all those people so you can become a referral partner. It's the same thing with what it is that you're doing. You're teaching people how to consistently enroll folks by empowering their prospects. You think to yourself, who needs to learn that? A whole bunch of people need to learn that. Well, let's get more specific about it. And that's where your JV strategy comes in. So I know we went a little off topic there, but I love it because it's a way to create.
We could probably talk for days. Yeah, between the two of us. We have lots of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, but it's so fun to talk shop and to have other people getting to listen in to hear that there's a method to the madness. There's a methodology that's in play, and there is a logical outcome that will flow when you are consistent, tenacious, and on purpose, right?
Right. I have one other thing. This is totally random, but it keeps coming up as something to say that I should say. So you were talking about conversion numbers. What I found, this was really interesting. So my conversion from a webinar is usually 10 to 15% of attendees. So that's like to a $2,000, $2,400 program. This is what's really funny. I started selling my $8,000 program through a strategy session from webinars. Like that was what I started doing last year. The conversion is the exact same. So you'd be like, so I was thinking like, why didn't I ever do that before? Like if your conversion number, like if you're pretty consistent, it's probably no matter what you're offering, that number is going to be the same. So I've tried that with my clients. So I have a client who she does group workshops. She can never get more than like 6 people into it. And she's getting so frustrated because she wants a group of like 12 in order to meet her financial goals. And so after a few rounds of launching this program and only getting 6, I was like, all right, well, maybe 6 is your number. Why don't we just raise the price? Raise the price. She still got 6, but she made twice as much money. And to be fair, like she definitely was undercharging. But the reason why she'd never raised the price was because she was afraid that if she did that, less people would sign up. She was afraid she was going to end up making less money. But the reality was 6 was her number. That's how many people will end up. It's just we have there's certain numbers that will show up consistently for you that you might not even notice. But if you can figure out what those consistent numbers are, they probably won't change, and you can change the other variables around it to actually reach your goals.
Well, that was like a bam moment, if ever there was one. That was something that I'm excited to have heard right here.
Now you're going to go through your numbers and be like, what are my numbers?
Well, and for creative people, sometimes creative people don't look at their numbers. They just keep on moving forward. Metrics can be your friend. There is freedom in structure. Pay attention to these matters. Holly, we could talk for hours and hours, but for the short term, I just want to say thank you for making time to speak to my audience about enrolling people powerfully by empowering our prospects. Thank you for sharing these insider strategies. Thank you for modeling the right way to do it. In the chat, I'm going to post the link to this amazing report, and I'm also going to post the link to register for the webinar that's happening on Thursday, April 14th at 1 p.m. Eastern. I want you to all run and don't walk to both. You will be so well served, and maybe you'll get that aha that you can do just exactly what she suggested. That could be a game changer, whatever your name. You've been great. Any parting thoughts before we sign off?
No, I just want to thank you for making the time to have this conversation. I feel like we covered a lot of really good stuff. I actually want to go back through it because I feel like there's a lot of material here that I don't usually talk about that you had some really cool questions.
Well, thank you. It was really a pleasure, and I'm so glad that we've been circling each other in each other's orbit for years, and it's only that we finally got on the phone and said, "Hey, we should collaborate."
Right.
And now it feels like we should have been collaborating the whole time.
I know. It's like one of those like missed opportunities. Like, why haven't we been talking before now? But now we know each other, and now we can do cool stuff together. So yes, it's all good.
And I'm very excited about it. So Holly, thank you so much for being here, and looking forward to the webinar on Thursday. And you just rock it out and make magic happen.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for listening. I hope you have an awesome rest of your day.
All right. Thank you so much.
Bye.
All right. If you've loved this show, it's going to be posted to the YouTube channel. If you're not yet a subscriber, hit that red subscribe button. Who knows what amazing, intoxicating expert's going to be coming next. And I want you to hear from them first because you are a subscriber. All right. This is Nancy Juetten and Holly Chantal signing off for now. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye. Okay. Let's see.